Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Ideas Sin. My name is Denise, and I'm excited to present to you Dan. So, Dan and I met, what was it, in Vegas?
Yeah, in
Rock
Red Rock,
climbing?
probably 2 years ago now.
Oh my gosh, it's been 2 years?
2 years.
Oh, man, that's a while. I mean, we were there for rock climbing. You were
Yeah,
climbing more than I was.
I think you were there with a whole group of people. I think it
Yeah.
was on the Alexisizer. I was just kind of like poking around, trying it out for the second time, I guess. And all of a sudden, this like mass of people descend on it. And my options were to leave or say hi. So
Yeah,
decided to be friendly.
that's awesome. Yeah, we were rolling like squad deep. This is my climbing fam. And, and they know more about, the climbing grades, the names, like all of that stuff. They're more into that. I'm just like, what should I climb? And then they just point at stuff. And then I'm like, all right, here we go. I'll try it. But yeah.
Honestly, that's my favorite way to pick climbs too. Like, I'm not one of those people. It's like, oh, I have these 13 projects that I really want to work on. It's more like my friends point me at something. I'm like, yeah, I'll give that a go. That sounds fun.
Yeah. I mean, and you've been climbing for like a long time too. Like, how long would you say you've been climbing for?
Long enough that I should be better at it, I think.
Really?
But no, I guess I started sort of when I was like 16.
Mm,
Um, it wasn't a lot of climbing back then. I grew up in Minnesota, and it's not exactly a landscape known for its soaring heights and enormous cliffs to scale. It's very flat. Um, but I started climbing kind of in my backyard a little bit, and then got more into it in college, first in Tennessee, and then up in upstate New York when I had access to the Adirondacks. And then
mm,
took some time off after college, largely because I got injured for like 4 years, but I've been doing it
mm.
pretty consistently for, oh God, probably like 10, 12 years since that injury. And just spending, yeah, a lot of time doing it.
Yeah. Was that injury from climbing?
Yeah, it was. It was really annoying. I think I was at my old gym in Boston, Boston Rock Gym, rest in peace.
Oh
And
my gosh, yeah.
it doesn't exist anymore, sadly.
I
But
remember that. Okay.
I was friends with one of the setters there, and they just set all these routes for one of the like kids like climbing competitions. And he was like, "Hey
Mm.
man, come check out all these new routes. Let's see what they're graded." And it turns out they were all way harder than I could climb.
For the kid, oh yeah, the comp stuff. It's
Yeah.
tricky.
Yeah, and I wasn't a super strong climber then. I was like coming off a little break of climbing, like after I graduated from college and didn't have any money or any place to go. I like took a little bit of time off and then just like dove back in. So here I am trying to like climb this really hard climb that was super stressful on all my connective tissue, but I was giving it everything I had and apparently a little bit more because the next day I just remember being like, "Oh no, this is not right." And and yeah, it took like probably 4 years for me to get back into it.
Oh.
I think there was a lot of things going on, and this was 10 going on 15 years ago, where climbing wasn't nearly as popular a sport. So these days I get injured and I live in Salt Lake City, and there's like I have 5 different friends recommending 16 different physical therapists to me, all of whom are
Oh.
better climbers than I am, frankly. But back in Boston, they were like, climbing? Do you like, I don't know, use your hands in that some, I guess?
Yeah.
So so it was a really long time before I just like figured out the right combination of things for trial and error to get better and could finally get back into it. It was a very frustrating time.
Yeah. And what exactly was it that you had injured? Was it like your hand or was
Oh,
it a different?
God only knows. I think it was like all the soft tissue from like my elbows on down. I think it was a bunch of things, and that was part of why it was so troubling. And then more
Mm,
like I think really the injury probably healed fine, but I think I was
mhm.
left with a lot of scar tissue and a lot of inflammation, a lot of swelling. It kind of like it did at one point kind of transform into like one of the tunnel syndromes, like some of the nerve tunnels just having too much pressure put on it, so everything hurt all the time. So I was wearing like wrist braces for a couple years, and this was when I was working at a library and like opening books and doing that motion to check them in. Like picking up books hurt, cooking hurt,
Oh, wow.
everything hurt. So it was not much fun. I was like, I really, really wanted to climb and I just couldn't.
Yeah.
And I remember trying to do like, oh, well, I'm gonna go bike, so I'm in shape for climbing. Oh, I'm gonna like do some pull-ups, so I'm in shape for climbing. And then just like I didn't actually climb for 4 years, and then when I finally got back into it, it felt really good. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to
Oh,
avoid
wow.
doing that.
Yeah. Okay. And so do you think that all those other activities that you did after your injury helped you get back into climbing? Like, did it actually strengthen you? Or do you think that, you kind of just did it to pass the time and do something else?
Yeah, it's hard to say. It's a little bit of each. Certainly, I wasn't exactly following a rigorous training plan, but I was also 20, so I could do whatever I wanted it and it would probably work even if it was completely wrong. I wish I could still
Yeah.
do that, but apparently not. Uh, so, like it certainly kept me in good shape. Like I was biking a ton, and that was kind of fun. I was getting pretty fast for a little
Mm,
while, doing a lot of like hikes and kind of like low key winter mountaineering stuff in the White Mountains and the Adirondacks, which are not big mountains but very rugged. So it was
mhm,
fun to get out that way at least, and that helped hold me over and certainly made me strong and gave me good experience to build on later. So it was definitely like, yeah, trying to find whatever I could do to just like not completely give up the ghost on this. And,
yeah.
and also like, it was hard. I was working at a job that was like up to 3 hours each way for my commute. And then like
Oh,
work,
really?
yeah, yeah, because well, Boston,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I was like living on one side of the city and had to commute to the other side. And yeah, like on a good day, it was an hour to an hour and a half each way. And during a snowstorm or when traffic hit, it was literally 3 hours each way. So I didn't have a lot of
Yeah.
time for climbing, didn't have a lot of money to go join a gym. There's good places to climb around Boston, but they're all like far away. Rumney is amazing, but it was an easy hour and a half drive minimum.
Yeah.
So just didn't have a lot of time for it. So it felt like a lot of like scraping to get whatever I could. But, eventually circumstances changed a little bit and I got back into it. And I'm sure that like, keeping in shape, keeping some semblance of strength helped me get back into it. And then just being really, really cautious about how I approached trying things again. Man, it was a
Mm,
long time before I tried anything hard. I was just paranoid about re-injuring myself. I don't want to do that
yeah.
again.
Yeah. Seriously. So, what was the type of climbing that you initially got into, and what was the type of climbing that you got back into? Was it the same or something different?
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny how I got, like I say, I grew up in Minnesota and not exactly the mecca of climbing. And I started out just wanting to like climb mountains and go places. Um, just kind of like go places that other people maybe couldn't get to.
Hmm.
Um, and it was like once or twice a year, me and one of my best friends growing up, a guy named Peter, lived like kind of behind me. Um, he and I would make it out to Taylor's Falls, this little area on the St. Croix River with some nice bluffs that you could set up a top rope on. But mostly what we did was practice our like rope systems in trees. Like we'd go over to our neighbors who had this huge willow tree and we'd ask them if we could climb their tree. I don't know what they were expecting from these two 16-year-old punks, but I come out with my bow and arrow and a fishing rod and we shoot
Yeah, I'd be like, watch this."
They said they had a great time watching us because I shoot
Yeah.
like a fishing line up to one of the upper branches. It'd usually take like 20 tries or something, but we'd get it
Yeah.
eventually, and then we'd like pull a climbing rope over it so we wouldn't absolutely die, and we'd start like practicing our rope systems in the trees.
That's awesome. That's very clever, actually.
It's kind of all we had, and
Huh.
like there weren't a lot of climbing gyms around at that time. I think the
Yeah.
closest one was on the other side of the Twin Cities, and we didn't have cars anyways or any money to go to the gym with. So it got us started, certainly. But yeah,
Oh.
I always wanted to do um like climbing trad was always kind of the goal for me, like traditional climbing where you set the gear as you go, because that felt like kind of a pure expression of what interested me in the first place, which is kind of just being able to walk up to a rock and be like, "Hey, I think I'm going to go up this," and not having
Mhm.
to, walk around the top step of top rope, not having to rely on bolting, not having to necessarily even know where you're going, just kind of relying on your own skills and ability and decision making and like physical ability to go places and be responsible for your own safety and getting there and back in one piece.
Yeah. No, I feel that. I used to climb trees like all the time. And so it's just like funny how these like things that you used to do when you were younger end up like translating into something else when you're older.
Seriously, yeah. Just like climbing trees is super fun.
It is. It's a lot of fun. I mean, so, all right. So you did that. And then getting back into climbing after your injury, did you end up just going to a gym or did you do outdoor climbing?
Yeah, as largely going to a gym, Boston was kind of a difficult place for me in general, and certainly difficult for climbing because I didn't grow up there and I didn't go to college there, but pretty much everybody else did, and that's where they made their friend groups. And it
Mm,
really felt like they weren't, mean or unfriendly, but nobody really wanted to open up their friend group. And so
mm.
it's very, very hard to meet people, very, very hard to make partners. And despite the fact that we met bouldering, I don't really like bouldering that much. And at that time,
Oh, yeah.
and at that time, I didn't want to boulder at all. I just wanted to climb ropes, and you kind of need a partner for that. So I'd go to the gym,
Yeah.
made some friends there. Eventually, did find a crew of people to get out with a little bit, but the gym was definitely my um, like kind of like my social place where I could try and meet people, try and make connections, try and get outside. And I ended up meeting some really, really cool people, some people that even though I haven't been there in a while, I'm still very close friends with, go back and visit, they come out and see me. And we've had some pretty memorable adventures climbing, or at least trying to climb in in northern New Hampshire and the Adirondacks.
Yeah. And you've traveled a lot for climbing. Like you've traveled internationally too, right?
Yeah, it's I moved out to Salt Lake. Didn't know anything about the climbing here. That was just kind of by accident. And but suddenly I'm in this place with all this climbing around me, and I mean, there's amazing climbing 20 minutes from my doorstep. But
That's
also,
awesome.
aside from that, yeah, like southern Utah is Indian Creek, Moe's and Joe's, like all the stuff around St. George. There's stuff in the Uintas. The Tetons are really close. There's amazing climbing in California that's an easy day's drive away, whether it's Joshua Tree or Yosemite or the High Sierras or whatever it is. So yeah, and especially like having met more people that are so excited to go places and are willing to just drop everything and do it. It's been pretty great. But yeah, I got to do a couple trips in Europe, uh, kind of just to climb, that were really good for me. And it was interesting because I hadn't really done a trip like that for myself ever. Like I hadn't really taken a trip by myself where I was the only person that I had to make happy and I could do whatever I wanted. And it was a little bit weird. Um, but I went there with no real plan and definitely kind of afraid, but ended up meeting amazing people, people that I still keep in touch with, people that I still see occasionally, and climbing some of the coolest things I ever climbed, and just spent 3 months like sleeping in a tent and carrying that and all my climbing gear around northern Italy and Barcelona and Montserrat and Sierrana and Portugal for a little while and then back to Sierrana. it was it was
That's
a cool
awesome.
trip. Yeah. It was one of those things where like, oh, like I got done with it and I was like, I don't know if I want to take another trip because I don't know how I could possibly live up to that. It felt like it was scripted in a like some Hallmark movie or something like that. It was pretty great.
Yeah. And how did you like camping for 3 months?
Oh, it's great. I don't need very much, and like sometimes having that simplicity almost is really nice. Like when I met you, I was just on this trip where I had my bouldering pads and I spent some time in Red Rock and I spent some time in Joshua Tree. And I don't like, I work remotely anyways, and I can work from wherever. So
Mhm.
basically, during the days I work, and then in the afternoons I climb, and then I make dinner, and then I go to bed because that's all there is to do. And that's a lot of what it was in Europe. The timing actually worked out great so that I
Mm.
could climb all day, and then in the evenings was normal Boston business hours. So I would just work a normal business day, hang out with some of the people that I met, and go to bed. And it's very simple, and there's not a lot of distractions, and um, it's a really nice reset.
Yeah.
And it's even amazing, like you'd think in that situation it would be hard to get much work done, but it's actually like sometimes I get more than usual done just because there's nothing else to do. It's very simple. I'm like, okay, cool, I get this done, and then I go climb, and that's my day.
Yeah. That's really nice. I mean, has anybody in your family ever gotten into climbing? Or like, are you the only one doing it?
Yeah, my uncle actually, like, he was one of the OG, badasses back in the day. He grew up in Long Island, and I guess he was like working at the Eastern Mountain Sports on Long Island for a week, and then going to the Gunks and climbing there for a week at a time. And like he's climbed all over the place. He's got stories about climbing in like the Tetons and in Italy and all this stuff. So he was climbing way, way, way back in the day with gear that is absolutely terrifying. I know,
Probably.
I know because he gave it to me. Like the climbing shoes they
Yeah.
have today with this like sticky rubber and these turn soles and all that stuff. He gave me his
Yeah.
old climbing shoes. They have tread on them. They look like they look like a cross between Converse high tops and just like hiking boots. They're horrible. They don't stick to
Oh my
anything.
gosh. Yeah.
And like he was climbing, like now they have these dynamic ropes where you tie into your harness and you fall, and the rope absorbs all of this energy, and it's super comfortable. And you take whippers, no big deal. He was climbing on like hemp ropes with no elongation. All you did was tie a loop around your waist, and if you fell,
Yeah.
if you didn't break your back, like falling,
Yeah.
you had to get back on the wall really fast because the rope would come up around your chest and people would like suffocate
Oh,
because they
yeah.
couldn't breathe. And so,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
and so he gave me his old gear when I was first learning to lead trad, and it was kind of terrifying. But man, now I feel great with all this like fresh new rack of like new cams and nuts and not creepy old weird Tetons and cam locks and what all. So yeah, like he when I started getting into climbing, he and I would talk a lot, but um that was kind of something that he'd done in the past, I think, but wasn't really
Mm,
doing anymore, and like didn't feel drawn to anymore. Like he kind of closed the chapter on that life. Seems really satisfied with it.
Okay.
So like in some ways he was someone that I could look up to, but in other ways like he wasn't necessarily a huge influence.
Hmm.
Just because like, yeah, like I say, I think he'd been kind of done with that part of his life. And no one else in my family really did. I think my mom went climbing with him a couple times. My dad certainly not my sister, and really no one else in my family that I know of, or even most of my friends. Just my one friend Peter. Um, he and I were really the only ones who did stupid stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions is if you ever had a chance to actually climb with your uncle before he like retired. But
No, sadly not. It'd be fun to do. I think he's offered to like hold the rope sometime, but just haven't really had the chance. He lives in Madison, and there is a good
oh,
climbing
okay.
area out there, but like it's hard for me to get there with all my climbing gear and stuff like that. But one of these days it'd be fun to
Wow.
like take a road trip back home and then drive out to Madison, meet him in Devil's Lake, get
Yeah.
shut down on some really really hard routes in the middle of Wisconsin for no real reason.
I know you and your road trips are just like, I'm just driving over here. I'm driving over here.
Yeah, it seems so easy sometimes because like I have my
Yeah.
little pickup truck with a topper on it. It's not built out or anything, but I'm pretty comfy sleeping in the back of it. I sleep great in the back of it, and it's so nice
Yeah.
just to like pack things up and head off someplace I want to be. And like I say, it's really simple. I've got like a system down. It narrows your world down to like what you're doing right there in the moment. And that's really
Yeah.
good for me, especially right now. Like um, I think the past few years have been weird for everyone. COVID and who knows
Yeah.
what's going on with the world. What a stressful time to be alive. And just taking that time, to be with myself, by myself, but also having the excuse of like, oh, I can go climb. It's almost like an excuse for a trip by myself. That's been really great. And then, at times, 2 weeks with myself is a lot of time to be with myself. And so, and so it's nice to like also meet people on the trip and like, chat, maybe have dinner, or just like go climb. I met some really cool guys last time I was down in Joshua Tree, climbed together for a few days, and then for whatever reason it absolutely dumped snow, and we all had our
Mm.
skis, so we went to Palm Springs and took the gondola up San Jacinto together and skied fresh powder in the middle of the desert. And yeah, just like these random dudes I'd met like 3 days before. It's like it's these chance encounters are such an like wonderful thing to me, and sometimes
Yeah.
they last for a long time, for example right here. um, and
Yeah.
other times they last for moments, and either way they're great.
Yeah, that's true. I know. And skiing's another thing that you're like pretty big on too. Was that something that you picked up when you were younger, or was that something you picked up later on?
Oh god, no. I started skiing, well, I skied a little bit when I was a kid at, Afton Alps. Again, Minnesota, not known for its huge mountains. And then when I was out in
Mhm.
Boston, I skied, once or twice a year with friends. But like the scene out there is kind of weird. First of all, the whole ski the east thing, where it's
Yeah,
just,
Northeast is like
oh
different.
man, I remember being up Whiteface in the Adirondacks. I think they call it Ice Face. I was there with one of my best friends, Andrew, who is a really good snowboarder, and I was allowed like. I'm not a great skier now. I was a terrible skier then. And I remember just like looking down this slope that is steeper than I wanted to do in any event, and just shiny blue ice the whole way down. So I didn't
Yeah.
I didn't ski a ton there. When I moved out to Salt Lake, it seemed like kind of a contractual obligation to like learn how to ski. But also, um, I really wanted to get into backcountry skiing. That was more enticing to me than the resorts. But like the ski mountaineering route has been really, really fun for me because it's like a new aspect of stuff that I've already done. And there are parts of it that I know really well just because I've done a lot of winter mountaineering in other places, a lot of ice climbing and stuff like that. But like the ski aspect is totally new to me. So it
Mm.
was fun to like have it be okay to be really bad at something. Um,
Yeah.
Especially at a time where I was like, like for a while I've been pretty plateaued in my climbing and feeling frustrated about it. Like I just, I want to progress, but it's not happening. And then to have this thing where I don't have to be good at it. Why would I be good at it? I've never done it before. So it's okay for me to like totally suck. And then like my progress, because I have literally nothing to do but learn. My progress has
Yeah.
been relatively fast. So that's been really fun. And I think part of why I like it so much here is that it's just a good way to get around the mountains more than anything else. Like in New
Mm.
England and the Adirondacks, there's so much brush, so many dense trees. The snow sucks. Skiing skiing in the
Yeah.
mountains is what you do, like really hardcore skiers do that. And I was not a really hardcore skier, so I use snowshoes. Um, and
Nice.
snowshoes here are just not as good as skis. So yeah, making that transitioning and adding that to my like mountaineering repertoire has been cool. And also like I've met amazing people doing that. Last year I went to like Chile with two of like my best friends that I met here. They're both really good ski mountaineers, and I just kind of fell along after them. But yeah, it's just been another extension
Nice.
of kind of that same mountaineering feel, and that whole new dimension to it has been actually kind of rejuvenating at a time where I felt really stagnant.
And so for you, how can you tell when you're not progressing in your climbing or any other activity? Like, how can you tell personally? Because I feel like everybody kind of they perceive it in different ways for
Yeah,
themselves.
yeah, that's a hard question for me. Like, there are some things that I track pretty closely, and if you just look at grades, like I just haven't really progressed in grades for a long time. I've been hitting the same grades for 5 years or something like that. Um,
Mm.
but there's more to climbing than just grades, especially for me. Like I'm not really a grade chaser. There's things that I want to do, and that's a fairly easy way to measure progress. And certainly being able to climb harder grades opens up more options to me. And there's some, really cool things that I want to do that are just harder than I think I can climb right now. But I'm not like, oh, if I never climb 514, then I'm a failure. I don't really care about that. Or so I tell myself. So, um, so in terms of just like hard, like grade numbers, I haven't really improved in the past couple of years. But in terms of other things, how I measure that, like, it has to be by feel a lot. It's like, okay, cool. How comfortable did I feel on this route? Um, or like what like do I just feel like I've been climbing well, or do I feel like I've been really clunky and out of sorts and like just hanging on for dear life and not really enjoying it? Yeah, very subjective.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
beginners.
very, very subjective. Well, I mean, a lot of beginners. Heck, I do it all the time. There's
Oh
you're
yeah,
always
that's
going to be
true.
at your limit sometime. That's one of the cool things about climbing. You can progress pretty much endlessly, and you can compare yourself to other people, but I don't really see the point in that with climbing in particular. Because, like, man, there's always going to be someone better
Yeah.
than you, and there's always going to be someone worse than you, and who cares? Like, as long as we're having fun, sweet, get after it. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, I don't have a good system for like measuring some of that other stuff, and probably I should, because I bet you if I really sat down and thought about it, I could find a lot of areas where I have progressed in over the past couple of years, but boy, I just don't feel it. And that's a little counterproductive.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that any of your previous injuries could have prevented you from
Oh,
progressing?
I'll tell you about my current injuries. Yeah.
Wait, do you have
Yeah.
more?
And honestly,
Since we
well,
last talked?
honestly,
Oh
I
my
don't think it was the
goodness.
trip I met you. I think it was the time after that. I spent a bunch of time down in Red Rocks that year.
Mhm.
Um, I like started getting a
Yeah.
lot of pain in one of my elbows, and like I think it might have been either like a brachialis tear or like something in the biceps head, something like that. But man, that really hindered
Mm.
me for most of the year. And then as soon as that got better, I did something to my other elbow that's frankly still hindering me a little bit. And I am
Yeah.
done with it. You know, like, I'm not like, oh, I'm so old, but I'm not getting any younger either. And these days, yeah, right.
Forever
But
young.
man, there's so much of my like training time these days that's just devoted to keeping my body in one piece. You know, just like mobility, physical
Yeah.
therapy, trying to strengthen antagonist things, like really trying to learn more about how to like train kind of holistically for longevity and also how to recover. Like I I like doing this
Yeah.
stuff, so I like to throw myself at it and just do obscene amounts of stuff. And hey, if I'm not getting better, what's the solution? Do more, obviously. And yeah,
Go harder.
turns out that's
Yeah.
not the answer, which I'm upset about.
Yeah.
But trying to investigate this whole rest thing that people keep telling me about. Um, so yeah, like all those injuries are a real pain, but they're definitely changing how I climb. And I think, I think I'm managing them well now. And I think I'm in a place finally for the first time in a couple of years where I can like actually train again, and I'm just starting to see a little results of that, and that does feel good. But I'm trying to set myself up to do this for a long time. I don't want to stop anytime soon. I know there are people out there twice my age who absolutely crush, climb harder stuff than I probably ever will.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't think there's a reason I should have to stop just because like I get old, as long as I, like kind of recognize where my body's at and meet it wherever that is.
Mhm. And at what point do you think a climber starts to recognize this? Because everybody gets injuries. They're like, oh, I pulled something here, I popped something here, or whatever. But, there's climbers of all ages. But at what point do you think people will start considering training for longevity versus, oh, yeah, I'm just training to get
Yeah,
stronger
that's
and get better?
interesting. Like probably a biased sample set, but certainly a lot of my friends in their 30s are all coming with the same thing. Like the there's that thing that I think every millennial and younger has gone through where all of their friends on Facebook or Instagram, I think I'm dating myself here, but here we are like, there's a period where they're all getting married, and then there's a period where they're all having kids. And I think as a climber, there's a period where they're all getting injured, and then and
And
then
they're
they're
all in
all getting into
PT.
PT, and they're all getting into yoga real hard.
Oh my God, yeah, yoga. I was going to ask you that too.
Yeah, or just like, any sort of mobility, whatever thing. I think mid-30s is definitely the point where you're like, wow, my body is not responding to training the way it used to. I gotta change stuff up.
Yeah. No, I feel that. I mean, and then it's interesting because, depending where you live, like some people will take yoga and they're like, "Oh yeah, I do it," but it feels like some of them do it for show versus like for training. But obviously, like yoga is like really great for just mobility in general for a lot of different sports and activities. But aside from yoga, have you, so obviously, like you're into a lot of intensive, adventurous, kind of risky activities. So, what kind of restful activities or lighter movement activities have you adopted to help with your training and
Yeah,
recovery?
I have some like kind of um yoga inspired sequences that I do just to like, get the crunchies out of the body, try like some of them are trying to gain mobility and some of them is just trying to like loosen myself up and feel good before a workout and really focusing on that. Also, like let me tell you, I like going on walks. I don't do it quite as much as I should, but a nice walk
Hmm.
feels amazing. And I think it's great exercise and like great for your whole body. And also, man, it's so easy in Salt Lake just to make skiing and climbing or, whatever your outdoor activity is your personality. And there's so many people around here where it's like, oh my gosh, you climb at the front and you have your keys on a carabiner and you have a tattoo of the mountains. That's amazing. Wow. Groundbreaking. And I like,
Where's your
it is
tattoo?
not
Let me
a tattoo
see.
of the mountains.
Just kidding.
Um, uh, and there's just a lot of people that make climbing or skiing or whatever their personality, it feels like. And like, don't get me wrong, I love this stuff. I love talking
Yeah.
about it, but also I love other things too. And I like having some sort of depth of
Yeah.
experience. And so, like, yeah, there's other hobbies that I love to focus on that I'm like, um, trying to make more and more time for. A lot of like I do a lot of like jewelry and metalworking, woodworking, stuff like that. I cook
Yeah.
a ton, trying to get better at guitar, trying to draw a little bit, mainly so I can draw another tattoo that isn't of the mountains. Thank you.
A carabiner, maybe a chalk
Yeah,
bag just
exactly.
to be different.
um, so and like taking some of those times as like almost meditative mindfulness exercises where I can like sit fairly quietly and do something that takes a lot of my attention, but just like do it slowly, do it well or poorly, whatever the day is, and just enjoy the process and like find a little more calmness in it. Um, and just like feel the enjoyment, like be actually mindful and present and aware of what's happening in my body and what's happening in my mind and like really really experiencing that process, I think has helped me like remember the joy that I find in the climbing and the skiing and the mountaineering and all that stuff that sometimes gets a little bit um sometimes it's a little bit hard to feel because I mean I do it a lot and I have a lot of goals and I'm not hitting those goals lately, so like that frustration kind of overwhelms and overrides and I get like a little numb to why I started doing it in the first place, and like connecting with those feelings and
Mhm.
connecting with like being present. I sound like some new age guru or something like that, but seriously, like like actually trying to feel things is kind of amazing, it turns out.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. And so, do you think that actually diversifying the activities and hobbies that you do helps you to relieve that pressure of achieving certain goals within those
Yeah, a
activities?
little bit. I do kind of wonder sometimes if I just like focused on one thing, if I could actually be good at it instead of just kind of like mediocre at a bunch of things. And I like
Hmm.
sometimes I struggle with that a little bit because I don't know if I have the personality for that. Like I think I'd get bored with one thing really quick. But also like yeah, I like being at least kind of good at a bunch of different things. I find it very satisfying that I can like climb a mountain and frame a house or plumb a bathroom or knit or cook or weld or whatever. Um, that's that's satisfying to me, and it's nice to have some like if you aren't excited about something, well, cool. Here's something else that you can be excited about, and you can give whatever you aren't excited about a little time on the back burner, just time to rest until you get excited about it again. It's kind of hard to force it sometimes, so having that flexibility is good.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel like I do that too. It's like I'll go through cycles with different activities, unless it's like climbing. It's usually like some injury that happens, and then I'm like, ah, and then I have to transfer over. But like climbing, I was just like, okay, I finally have to just like retire you for a little bit and let me dive into these other things. But yeah, I mean, so with all these other activities that you've gotten into, I mean, did you just stumble upon it yourself just out of curiosity, or did you see something that inspired you, or somebody else told you about it, or did you grow up with it? Like how did you end up getting into like woodworking and, and knitting and cooking
Yeah,
and
I
all of
don't
this
even
stuff?
know some of the stuff. So like cooking, my dad's always been a really good cook, and like my family on my mom's side are Italian, so like there was some cooking happening there. And then I think I
Hmm.
graduated college and I had no money, but I still wanted to like eat good food, and cooking was just kind of how I like it was normal to me to cook. It was just kind of what I thought people did. And so I started trying to like, make things that were good. And that's just been, just something I do for fun. And then lately here, a lot of the people that I ski and climb with are also amazing cooks. One of them works at a very nice restaurant around here
Mm.
as a line cook. And then one of my best friends actually just moved to the Boulder area to work at a bakery. He's an amazing baker. He made the best sourdough bread in Salt
Oh,
Lake City.
nice.
Um, and he was experimenting with all these different ancient grains. And let me tell you, his amaranth phase was amazing.
Mm.
Um, but like having these people around me who um, are also really good at it and really engaged in things is really energizing to me. And definitely like I'm like, oh man, I can't let the boys down. I gotta like send something good to the group chat.
Hey guys, look at my
Basically,
bowl of cereal. I poured that milk real
some
good.
days it's like that. Um,
I
yeah,
know,
but
I
some
do
of
the
the other
same too.
stuff, I don't really know.
Yeah.
I mean, the metalworking and woodworking, it was kind of nice. The high school I went to had a cool wood shop, and um, like I learned a bunch of stuff there, like in the wood shop and the machine shop, working on cars, stuff like that. We just kind of messed around. We didn't have a lot of control over our classes, so we had to like build some like just stairs, like standalone stairs for our project. And then I
Mm.
don't remember why, but because it seemed like a good idea, we put wheels and a motor and a differential on it, and then we did the same to a
Nice.
stool and started racing them around. And let me tell you, the straight line acceleration on the stool beat the stairs any day, but man, that stool could
Oh,
not handle
really?
corners at all. If there was any turns in the racetrack, the stairs were going to be the hands down winners. Um, and then like my friends in high school, Peter among them, but a couple of my friends, I don't know how we got into this. This is stupid, but we started making chainmail, and
Wait,
yeah, like we take little
chainmail?
rings and like make armor or whatever. Well, it turns out you can make like jewelry out of it too.
Oh.
And that was really fun. It felt really cool just to like
Mhm.
do things with my hands with like metal and sparks flying and blah, whatever. And so like I sort of got into a little bit of like jewelry work there, but like really wire and um like chain focused. But then when I in
Mhm.
college, the last 2 years I took it. classes in like actual jewelry and metalsmithing. And there was an amazing studio with um, our professor who was um, an interesting person, but certainly a very talented artist. Um, and I learned everything I could, and I was like pulling 2 all-nighters a week in the metal shop just so I could like make some more stuff. It was so much fun, and that's another place too. I like having that communal
Yeah.
metal shop. Terrible for the tools, but awesome because there was always somebody around who would have like cool ideas, and you could just like feed off of
Mm,
each other. If you were stuck on something, you'd be like, yo, look at this. What should I do? And they're like, why don't you do this? I'm like, that's ridiculous. I'm going to do
yeah.
it. Um, so having that energy of other people has always been something I've fed off of. And um,
Mm.
yeah, it's cool experiences, but random hobbies for sure.
No, that's awesome. I mean, I'm kind of the same way. I have a bunch of random hobbies too, and I'm like, I'm
I
learning
was going
this
to
and I'm
say,
doing that, and you just learn so much from
every
other
time I
people
talk to you,
too.
you're like helping wildlife refuges or trying to survive in the wild for 8 days, or you're taking road trips, or I don't even know what you're doing anymore. It's just
I don't know
love it.
either.
Love
I'm
it.
just winging it every week. I'm just like, yeah, I don't know. Let's just try this. We'll
It's a
see how
good
it
way to live
goes.
life. It's a good gig if you can get it.
It is. It's fun. It's just but again, it's like you have to be comfortable with adaptability. You have to be comfortable with change and to some extent, because there's a lot of things that I have done and I'm sure that you've done where you're like, oh shit, I don't really feel comfortable with this, but
Mhm.
I'm still going to go and do it. And so I don't know. I kind of want to go back to a point that you made where you were like, yeah, some people they make their hobby like their personality. And so why do you think that is? Why do you think they take on this, I guess, like image? Because it's, I don't know. Yeah, like this image, this personality. Why do you think they do that? Because that is like a thing. I mean, I see it in a lot of different sports activities.
Oh
Climbing is
yeah,
no
I think
different.
climbing is really susceptible to it. And like just to be clear, I'm not like, saying that you shouldn't enjoy what you do in whatever way you want to do it. Like if you want to go like 100% head first into whatever, get after it, have fun, do your thing. Um like it's just not really the vibe that I want to do. But I think climbing, it is such a rich thing. Like there's so many different ways to do it, whether you're bouldering, just climbing in a gym, going outside, doing some sport, maybe just top roping, getting into trad, getting into alpinism, doing ice climbing, ski mountaineering, whatever it is. Like there's a huge world and myriad of worlds. And interesting personalities doing it for sure. And there's certainly some romance, I think, like the romance of the dirt bag, if you will. I don't know. I've known a few dirt bags. I don't know how romantic they are, but
I don't know either. You'll probably find out before I do.
um, so like it's a very rich world to dive into, and it does like when you pull off a cool climb, man, you feel pretty cool. Um, and that's an easy feeling to lean into. And so yeah, I don't really like I make fun of people a little bit for just like, oh cool, do you have a personality though? But at the end of the day, like I'm not going to yuck somebody else's yum, and if they want to experience it that way, get after it.
Yeah. No, but yeah, it's true. It's just like the acceptance of people that are in that. But it's also like, don't shut yourself out from life and the world and all these other things that you could be and could incorporate. Um,
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, I think
yeah, and
that's so
for me, it's so much
important.
just like just know the difference between a hobby and a personality. Okay, like if all you do is talk about climbing and you can't hold a conversation about anything else, like I'm I'm sorry, I like talking about climbing, but I'm probably not going to want to talk to you for very long because I've talked about climbing plenty. I'm good. There's other interesting things in this world, and yeah,
Yeah.
let's experience them. Let's be interested in other things. Let's look outside our comfort zones and find new cool things. Um, and
Mhm.
yeah, it's easy to get wrapped up in this stuff. And I think it's easy to feel like it's important somehow. And I don't know, at the end of the day, I I've I feel like what I'm doing is pretty frivolous. And I'm okay with that.
Mm. So frivolous as in like world like issues wise, or like frivolous in what way? Like what are you comparing it to?
Honestly, like all the ways, I think people in these like action adventure sports, a lot of people seem to think that what they're doing is like important somehow and like entitles them to certain things. And like I'm not saying it isn't cool and it isn't valuable to see people doing amazing things or it isn't valuable to push your limits for yourself or something like that. But at the end of the day, like this is a huge luxury and we're just like we're going out and doing kind of silly things. I'm literally picking up the hardest way I can to get up a stupid rock. I'm already standing on top of a rock. I can usually walk around the other side. Like, why am I doing this? There's no good reason. And um, like I have this conversation a lot where people talk about like it. I think it's important in the context of like rescue
Yeah.
situations, like
Yeah.
search and rescue. A lot like it's so easy to rely on other people to be there when things have gone horribly wrong, whether it's search and rescue or other climbers or whatever. And I'm not saying you shouldn't, but like make peace with the fact that what you're doing is really selfish. There's no reason to like there's no really practical fundamental reason to do it. There's good reasons, but not like
Yeah.
practical reasons like there is to eat food, right? Um, and there can be a cost to other people if you get yourself in a situation where you need to be rescued. People are going to come out and put their own safety on the line for you because you decided to do this fairly frivolous thing. And that's okay. That's cool. There's still value in doing this. There's value for me. There's value for people who want to see people do like amazing things and push their limits. There's value. But at the end of the day, it is
Mm.
still kind of selfish.
Yeah, and there's a
Um,
lot of activities like that. I mean, it's not just rock climbing, but like yeah, skiing or hiking. Like how many times have we heard the stories of hikers getting lost and then they're they're gone. People they send out the search and rescue teams and then they can't find them and unfortunately they pass away, or yeah, because it was just they were ill prepared or something happened and they didn't like coordinate correctly with somebody. They didn't say, "Hey, this is where I'm going," or "This is how you can find me or track me." And yeah, accidents happen, which is scary, but
yeah, and like I think um, yeah, I think it's important to recognize that accidents do happen and that there are risks and that this stuff for myself at least is still worth doing despite the risks. And personally, I'm super risk adverse.
right?
Like, yeah, I go do all this climbing, but
Oh my
I'm such a pansy
god.
about it. Man, you should have seen me in the Tetons this summer. I just looked like the scaredest scaredy cat ever to be scared of
I
anything.
doubt that.
And but like so like I'm pretty risk adverse, but like there's still risk and that's fine. Like that if something happens, like again, I've made peace with that, but and it's totally worth what I get out of it because while it may not be practical in the same way as eating food is, it's still very valuable to me. And my life would be, at the very least, extremely different if I didn't have it in it. I don't think I would like it as much. So it's still very valuable to me. But yeah, it's still a luxury that I get to do it. And I think keeping that in mind helps me maybe make better choices about my safety. It's like, cool, like, yeah, let's go out and ski. And if we're looking at a line that's like maybe a little sus, it's like, okay, one of the things you think about is like, okay, are the rescue helicopters flying today? Is life flight flying? Can they land today, or is it like, bad weather and they can't fly in? So like, how much risk do we take? But also, how much risk do I want to take? Is skiing this line worth making somebody fly a helicopter out to
I
save
mean,
my
sometimes they
life?
just want to test out a new helicopter. Like, I'd be like, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I'll fly out
Sure,
there.
right, yeah. Yeah, the U's got some trainee like flight
Yeah,
medics. They
exactly.
gotta get their training somehow, right?
Don't
They can
worry, I'll be
practice
one of
on me.
those
That's fine.
trainees, and I'll be like, "Hey, Dad, what's up? This is another thing I'm."
They're like,
Yeah,
oh, is this your
exactly.
new thing this
I mean,
week?
it is
Cool.
on like the future to-do list. Learn how to fly
Fun.
something. It'd be dope. Yeah, right.
Nice. Yeah, you should definitely start with like flight medic
Ooh,
helicopters. That seems
okay.
like the
I'll look
easiest way
into it.
into it, I
Yeah,
think.
and I can be yeah, and I can help people. And so, what would you say is like a non-frivolous activity that somebody could get into, or something that you're potentially interested in getting into? Aside from obviously like eating the basics and stuff, I'm not talking about that.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Like, there's a lot of like obvious things. Like I've been doing some charity work and trying to spend time doing that. That doesn't feel frivolous to me as long as you do it right. I think you can do
Mm,
very frivolous charity work, but like you can also do very, very meaningful charity work. And that's actually been a little nice expansion for me. Um, I, I don't know. I'm sure a lot of people would argue with me about this being frivolous, and I think a lot of people would argue with me about other things that I don't see as frivolous. As they'd be like, oh, what's the point of that? Like, art is really important to me. I think art is super central to what it means to be human. Even if it's just like, oh, pretty shapes, yay. That's still like, I don't know, it's something in our animal brains. It's important to us. It's meaningful. I don't think it's frivolous. And you could argue that some of this stuff sort of falls under that category. I don't want to call it art, but certainly like enrichment of our lives, like some sort of goal, even if it isn't like super meaningful
mm,
intrinsically, like you can make it meaningful. So, you know, maybe even I would argue about it being
mm,
frivolous, but I, yeah, it's hard for me to like figure out what's really important. I think I'm kind of like going through a lot of that in my head right now. Like, hey, what is important? What is meaningful? I haven't really come up with answers yet. So,
That's
way
what
to
I
put
like
me
to
on the
do.
spot.
No, but I no, and I understand because I've been going through those cycles as well, and I'm sure that there are a lot of people, regardless of age, like it feels like different people will go through that and try to define like what is actually important in life. Is it really that selfie you're trying to just take and post on Instagram and hit like 100 likes or more? Like, is that really important in life, or is your well-being actually more important in life? And charity work, yeah, charity work is yeah, I don't know, there's always been something about charity work that I find like very fulfilling, but again, not everybody knows or thinks about getting into it, or they don't know like where to even start with it, and it's just like, well, what brings you happiness? Like, what brings you comfort and security, or like, what has bothered you in your life, or was there something that's happened to you in your life, and you're like, I don't want somebody to go through that. Like, I want to help them out. So I think like just figuring that out is always tricky too.
Yeah.
That's a self-reflective activity to get into. Some people might just be able to say, yeah, I'll just go work and I don't know, put some meals together for these folks and then call it a day. And that's fine, but I don't know, it almost feels like charity work. I don't want to say should be a hobby, but um I don't know, it should be valued almost just as much as like a hobby. I say that, but I'm like, how much are you valuing your hobbies?
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. And like I've talked to a lot of people about this. I've put a lot of thought into it. I think we've talked about this a little bit before. I've had some really interesting conversations with people in different organizations. There's like I think where I am right now is like you do have to take care of yourself before you can take care of other people. Whatever your needs are, you gotta meet them for sure. And like I was just down in Arizona helping out this really cool charity around here, and I was talking to some of the other guys. Pretty much everybody else was, much older than me. They're all retired. I was talking to one of the guys. He's like, "Yeah, um, I like finally retired, so starting to put more time into charity. Wish I'd done it before. Like, not a really good excuse." And I was like, I don't know that it isn't a good excuse. Like, we have our careers, we have our lives, we have these things that we do, and they're important. And like the fact that you're doing
Mm,
stuff now, like just that's amazing. And I've had my own thoughts about it in the past because I did this thing years ago. I decided that however much money I spent on gear during the
mm.
year, I was going to donate to charities. Originally, as kind of a nice thing to do, and also I was like, cool, maybe I'll buy a little bit less gear. But now it's just like, oh, I need new skis for the rainforest.
Nice. Like it.
But so like I've been trying to like donate some money to charity, but I was feeling like it was kind of a cop out and that I should be doing something. And then it was the first time I was ever in Red Rock when I was still in Boston, years before I moved out here, before I met you. I was climbing in Black Velvet Canyon with this guy, interesting guy. I think in his career, he was like a high powered corporate lawyer. And then he retired and he started heading up like the regional chapter of, I think it was a charity that got um, like inner city kids access to outdoor sports and things like that they wouldn't have access to anyways. And I was, talking to him about this, like, yeah, I wish I could actually do more and not just give uh, my money. And he was like, I don't want your time. I don't want your unskilled, unscheduled, unpredictable, and limited time. Right now, like, you do a job, you're good at it, you get paid for it and you get paid well for it. And that is the most valuable use of your time. Like, that's how you're generating the most worth. So do that and then give me some of the money so that I can hire staff who are trained to do this and can be around full time or part time or whatever I need on a predictable schedule. I don't like the help you have to offer is not what I need. I need funds to hire people who are dedicated to this. And that really changed how I looked at like giving. And I had some other experiences. Like we did something for one of my jobs where we helped out at a homeless shelter, and we must have chopped like 100 bags of onions. And towards the end of the day, my boss went to like the head cook there, and he was like, "Hey, what do you do when you don't have help to chop this many onions?" And he was like, "Oh, we have a machine." I was like,
Yeah.
"Well, so you were just giving that to us to make us feel good about
Oh my
ourselves?
gosh.
That's not why we're here."
Yeah, and I feel like that kind of that go on.
And so yeah, just like how you give your time. Like there are some charities where unskilled labor is super useful. The one I was just down in Arizona for, like, yeah, you didn't need a lot of skill to do it, and so just having like bodies that could move boxes around was great. And other charities, that's absolutely not the case. And so, um, yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways that you can be effective at, making the world a better place in whatever way is important to you. And I think that it's okay to have different times in your life where that looks different.
Because you're also going to gravitate towards different things in your life. Like most people are going to change. You're going to go through different cycles. You're going to experience different things. And then that's going to inspire you to be like, oh, wow, I'm going through this type of life change or life phase. And oh my gosh, like I don't want other people to go through that. So let me help them out or let me try to mentor somebody. Like even that can um, just help anybody. I mean, a lot of times, like people don't have to, you don't have to commit yourself to an organization. Just sometimes, even dedicating yourself to helping somebody you know already can just make a huge difference. But what is your take on, I mean, even like the nonprofit world? Like, how do you find, from your experience or your opinion now that you're kind of like floating through this, like, how do you find a reputable group to dedicate your time or your resources to?
That's actually really hard. Great um, I don't have great rubric or anything like that where I can check off all the boxes. There's certainly some things I look for, just like I tend to gravitate towards either like local charities. It doesn't necessarily have to be local to where I am, but like local to wherever they are, because I think like by and large, the ones that are more local, more focused, are better at meeting the needs of their community. So either that or international, where the dollar just goes so much further than it does locally. Um, that those can both be like good places to look or good criteria to look at. And then also like, what's the overhead? Get on Charity Navigator and see how much of their budget actually goes to operating instead of like fundraising. Like, you donate to the Sierra Club or whatever, and they're a great organization, but like trying to save some trees and then they send you like 3 months worth
Oh
of
yeah,
mailings that are like 3 inches thick.
yeah.
And you're like, I don't think I saved a lot
Are
of
these
trees
the
doing
trees you're
this.
talking about? Yeah. No.
um, but honestly, like I definitely rely on my friends who are a little more plugged into some of that world. My cousin's been a great resource for me. She's worked in nonprofits, especially related to like conservation, like especially animal conservation. She has had some very good recommendations for me, and then other people have hooked me up with some local
Nice.
charities around here. So um, yeah, I wish I had a better answer, but it's hard.
No, that's great. Yeah, Charity Navigator was one of the sites that I like to use too, for either making donations or just kind of like investigating them a little more. But I don't know, do you see like charity work potentially influencing the kind of work that you do in the future, like professionally? Or do you think, oh, yeah, that's just something I do for myself on the side?
A little bit of both. I've been looking at starting a PhD program that one of my coworkers was kind enough to recommend me for, and it would be largely focused on like water natural resource conservation, with like a heavy data science and machine learning and image processing bent because I do software stuff. Um,
Mm.
and that would be, I mean, first of all, pretty good career choice at this point, but also like, I live in the desert. I'm staring at natural resource issues in the news every single day, whether it's water or land for mining or turning something to a golf course or alfalfa farm in the middle of the desert, whatever it is. And then as
Yeah.
more and more people move here and Salt Lake is drying up and there's less rainfall every year and it's hotter every year and all this stuff, like this stuff is important.
Yeah.
And that's definitely one way I can sort of combine the professional work with a little bit of like whether it's altruism or just something bigger, or even what I do now. I work for a company that is making tools for like cell culture research, and people are using them to look at cancer, or looking at COVID for a while, a lot of viral research, like all sorts of different things. And does it feel like I'm doing a lot of good on any given day where I'm just trying to make a button green? Maybe not. but
Oh man.
but
Oh
like,
yeah.
like
You're one of those guys.
one
Okay.
of those
I'm
guys.
just kidding.
We can dig into that one later. Seems like you
No, I'm
personally hurt by a software developer. It sounds like, I don't know.
no, not at
I
all.
think we've all been there,
I
honestly.
just like
Trying to log into your email, it's like, why
no,
can't I
I just
click on
like
this
never
button?
think about it. Yeah, that has happened before where I'm like, why is this not working? That happened earlier in an app I was using. It was like, I need help and the help button's not working. Hello.
I'd like to report a bug, but the report a
Yes.
bug button is broken. So Um, but yeah, like I think it's also worth remembering that so many of the problems that we're working on right now are huge and complicated and interconnected, and just like it's going to take a bunch of people doing seemingly like individually seemingly menial or meaningless things to like actually come together as a whole solution.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that. I've thought of that too, and it's just like one person can make a difference, but it's just like, how do you round up the people to like help them in their lives to feel fully fulfilled, and then get them to the point where they're self fulfilled and they have given enough to themselves that they can now give to others. Like, how can we do that to support one another in our lives? But I don't know. So, I mean, for you, like, do you find that community is pretty important in just self fulfillment or just in connection or healing or helping you decipher what you want to do with the
Oh my
future?
gosh, hugely. Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons I think I was so unhappy in Boston because I really never had much of a community around me. Like I say, I had a few people who ended up being very close and very important friends, but like it wasn't even like a friend group. It was like scattered, one here, one there, whatever. Um, and I think there was one point I was kind of like reflecting on some of my thoughts after therapy one day, maybe 2 years ago, where I was just like, wait a second, have I just been lonely for the past 5 years? Huh, interesting. That's that
Oh,
certainly
breakthrough.
put some color on some of the interactions I've had. But
Yeah.
yeah, like having community around me, like man, sometimes it feels like why are we even doing this if it's not for the people around us? Like self-fulfillment and self-actualization is great and all that, but like if I don't have people around me, and like don't get me wrong, there are some days where I just hide from the world and don't want to see anybody, but like
Or you drive for like
yeah.
days on
But
end.
like yeah, these interactions, like I say, whether they're momentary or lasting, add so much color and interest and just immeasurable value to my life, at least. It's definitely something over the past like 4 years, especially since I've been here in Salt Lake, that I've been focusing on like really intentionally, and not just so I can have the layers.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think like a lot of people are just do you think people are lonely because they either don't have community or because they're in the wrong community, or why do you think there's such a
I don't know. I
disconnect?
think it's like, I don't, hmm. It's an interesting world we live in. I think it's definitely hard to make friends as an adult. I think everyone's just really busy. Everyone gets set in their ways. I mean, look at us. It took us, what, 3 months to set up this hour and a half long chat? Yeah,
Yeah,
something
something
like
like
that.
that.
It's like the world's
Yeah.
busy, it's full of stuff, and like people move around, and it's
Mhm.
really easy to move around these days. And so, like, yeah, I live really far away from most of my very best friends. And I'll tell you what, I like it seems like every year I'm like building a friend group here, and then they all just end up moving away. It's like I saw this thing as like, yeah,
Oh,
everything falls into place and then it all just disappears. It's like we're all playing Tetris, and boy, I felt that in my soul. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, I think it's a lot of things. I think it's difficult to build and maintain a community, especially maintain one. It's like a lot of time. It's a huge commitment. I think you have to be like, it's hard to be in a place to do that in the first place. Like, where do you meet people these days? It's usually by like having some sort of social hobby. But if you don't have a particularly social hobby, like I'm super lucky that I have climbing and I can go to a gym where there's a freaking million people on the bouldering wall, whether I like it or not. And I can just chat to somebody if I want to. Or I can meet someone like at the Alexisizer at Red Rocks and just have a podcast with them 2 years later. No big deal.
I know, right?
And if I didn't have that, like, what are my other hobbies? Sitting in my like basement, filing away at little pieces of gold and silver? Like, I'm not going to meet anyone doing that.
Well, yeah,
So, so like,
I
it's
have plans. I got ideas.
uh, I'm excited. Um, but it's hard to meet people, and it's hard to find people that you really vibe with. And then once you have your community, it's hard to let other people in. Like, it takes real effort. And like, how many people that you meet are you even gonna really vibe with anyways? um I don't know, we're just like, for as interconnected as we are with like, social media, not to make this a social media rant or anything like that, but like, it's hard to make genuine connection and make it last in this world where we have so much to do all of the time and not a lot of time to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes to show, like, I mean, you and I have talked about how we have like a million hobbies and we're always doing a bunch of different things. But then it goes into that point of, okay, well, what about slowing down? Is that going to help? For individuals who commit to just one activity or one hobby, are they more likely to develop a community because they're just very focused on it versus constantly changing and transitioning and things like that? Unless, again, it's like a very solitary activity or hobby. Unless they go to like conventions or something. I was like thinking of like PAX or like, like the big video game conventions, because there's a lot of those guys that like they're playing alone on their like computers or their uh different game consoles, but like they're with other people, but again, like they can be very solitary or maybe have another person with them. But I mean, they still have conventions and they still go meet
Yeah,
people and like they develop friendships, but like they put in that effort to actually go and try to connect with people. So I don't know. Do you feel like people are just scared of being open and just kind of putting themselves out there to make friends? Or are we just asking the wrong questions and making the wrong
yeah. I mean, I feel
connections?
like you're getting to like big, generalized philosophical stuff, and I can say more or less whatever I want,
Yeah, I do that.
and I'll be both right and wrong at the same time. But um, yeah, I like. it is scary to put yourself out there, and God knows rejection doesn't feel good, can confirm. And I think, man, for me, I was in this past year, I was in like a really kind of weird place where I was not really seeking much connection and not really even nurturing the ones I had. Just because, like, yeah, I think there were like, again, I had a few friends who were really, really close to me just move away, and like still very close with them, like go visit them and stuff like that, but like they just moved away. And then I had some other friendships or relationships or whatever that kind of just drifted apart, and there wasn't really a good reason for it. And I think that might be one of my least favorite things in the entire world. And that just happened
Mhm.
like a couple of times, and I was very tired of it, just like drained. And I wasn't feeling like I was in a place to go try and build that deep connection and risk having it go away. And I mean, actually, just was just talking with my therapist about this last week. Like, you can't go living your life afraid of being hurt emotionally. But also, if you don't have the energy for that kind of risk at a time, it it does make sense to, like, spend your energy wisely. And I think that's a hard balance to get. And I think that kind of like emotional distress really sucks. And I don't think we learn how to do that really well, in at least in certainly the world that I grew up in. This is all stuff I've been having to learn in the past 4 years. Feel like a toddler trying to walk emotionally, and like learn how to accept these really lousy feelings and like do things in spite of, because of, with them. But it's not much fun. And like I don't really blame you if you don't want to risk that. So there probably is a lot of that for a lot of people.
And so, how do you know for you? Like, I'm sure everybody has kind of had those friendships or relationships where it's like, okay, you've invested time and energy into it, but at some point you realize, like, oh, this is not for me anymore, or I can't do this anymore. Like, at what point I don't know, like, at what point have you identified that within your previous relationships, or like, what have you done in those situations then to maybe like end things or kind of cut things off or distance yourself when you realize that relationship is not really good for you?
Well, if you're coming to talk to me about setting boundaries, you are in the wrong place, let me tell you. Not my forte. Something I've been working on, but not great at it. Because I will let that linger way past the point where it's healthy, and just kind of pretend
Mm.
everything's okay. I don't know, like, yeah, that's really hard to do, and it's so easy to just do the old fallback of like letting things just like stop and disappear without having some like any conversation around it. And that's not even necessarily the worst things to do. Like sometimes you don't really need to talk something out. You need to make a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
No, you're talking to the wrong person about that. Can tell you what not to do.
Yeah, I was gonna.
Maybe I
Yeah,
should
I
be
was
asking
wondering. I was
you.
like,
You should
huh.
tell me.
Oh, for me, oh man, I don't know. I've definitely been through like the random cycles as well, where it's like, okay, it's just it blows up and it's just not good, or it's like the slow fade, or it just fizzles out naturally, or I don't know. It's really hard. Like, I really value my relationships and my connections, and I'm a very loyal person, and so I will stick to something again to try to ensure that like they're okay and that I can do what I can to
Mhm.
help them. Because I don't like to see people suffer. I've suffered immensely in my life through different things, but again, with that suffering, I've also had a lot of joy and bliss and good times. but I hate seeing people suffer. And so for me, sometimes I end up sticking to it because I'm like, I want to help you out of that. I want to get you out of there. But again, it's not great. And I've realized like, man, I've been hanging out with this person or I've been talking to this person, and instead of feeling like good or happy or, just like excited to just leave my interactions with this individual and that's it, and like move forward with it. It's like I've had plenty of situations and relationships where it's like, man, I'm fucking drained, like I'm depressed now, I'm anxious leaving the situation, and it's not even my
Yeah,
problem, and it's just like I shouldn't feel so drained. And one thing I hate doing is wasting time. I absolutely hate repeating myself all the like I hate it, especially when they just come with the same problem over
yeah,
and over and over again. And it's like I get it, I've been there, so I try to empathize, but again, it's like that boundary where it's like, okay, I've literally given you a million different ways that you can solve this, but you're not doing anything to change, and so I can't fucking change for you. And it's really just starting to drain me, and I'm just starting to have this animosity towards this person now because they're not doing anything. So I'm just like, you know what, I gotta take care of myself. Like I shouldn't be leaving our exchanges and feel drained and depressed or anxious every time. Like that's not
yeah,
healthy. Um, so I get it. Yeah, it's definitely something you have to learn and build and identify, because when you're in it, sometimes you just don't identify that you're in something negative until it's like too late, or until you blow up, or until whatever happens.
yeah. I feel all of that. I definitely resonated with all that. I think the one thing that I have gotten a little bit better at over the past couple of years is not taking on other people's problems, because I used to like, man, exactly like you were saying, I would just want to like fix it, like, hey, I care about you, I want this to be better, I'm going to help you. And there's probably a little bit of like, I know the best way to do that too, which isn't, a great look for me, but here we are.
I think like we've
Yeah.
all been through that, so I get that. I get it. Yeah.
But like that, I have gotten a little better at setting boundaries of like, hey, listen, I want to hang out, but like, if you're just going to trauma dump on me, I don't have space for that right now. I don't have space for my own stuff. So like, how am I supposed to take care of you? And I shouldn't be taking care of you. Like, you should be taking care of you. Maybe I can support that. But like, there's a difference between supporting it and taking it on and taking it and making my own. And like, even just like thinking about it that way in my head has made me have better reactions over the past few years to those situations, at least. But man, I still just like, yeah, I feel you. It's so easy to take on somebody else because like you don't want to see your friends in distress or pain or whatever. You want them to be happy and carefree and effusive, and so it's really easy to take that on. But man, it is not often a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's like one of the hardest things too, is like learning to let go. It's just, I don't know, for me it's always like extremely hard. um yeah, it's that's like its own suffering too. It's just like I don't want to say it's like the death of a friendship or a relationship, but it is. You're like, you experience the death of something that was once there, and it's no
Oh
longer
yeah.
there. You have to mourn it and move on, and then be like, well, am I going to find another friend that'll be there, that I can grow with, that I can learn with, and who's not going to make me feel depressed all the
And that's where
time? Are they, where are
and that's
they?
where the anxiety kicks in, because you're like, okay, well, what did I do wrong? And how can I be better next time? Or is it all
Yeah.
my fault? And will there even be a next time? I don't know. Probably not. Maybe I should just go back to this
I'm
other thing.
doomed. Yeah. Yeah. Man, like, we just have so much to learn as individuals. And I think that that's okay. That's just part of life. Like, there are going to be people that come in for different reasons in your life. Some will I've said this a few times with different people and friends, but it's like some people come in for like a reason, a season, or like a lifetime. And it's just like, okay, just play it out. You don't have to figure out which one they fall into just yet, but, learn from it. And going back to your point of being present and being in the moment and observing these things, and not don't get so distracted by social media, because sometimes that kind of blinds you to what reality actually is.
Yeah, I like that. A reason, a season, or a
Yeah.
lifetime? Is that what you said?
Yeah. I had to think about it. I was like,
I like
what did
that.
I
I
say?
like that.
Yeah. Reason,
I'm gonna write
season, or
that
a
down.
lifetime.
Eat, pray, love.
Yeah. Oh, you're going to do it now? I'm just So, I mean, for you, like, what, excuse me, what has been like your filtering process, like with determining who you develop friendships or relationships with?
Man, again, don't don't always have a great filter about that. And that has gotten me into some sticky situations from time to time. um, I think over like I'm a pretty friendly guy. Look at me, I'm pretty friendly. And I like to meet people and I like to make friends and I feel like I'm generally pretty easy to get along with and I can get along with most people for at least a little while. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that I have definitely not had very strong criteria in the past. And like I think it was around this time last year, I like introduced two of my friends to each other and it went south in a way that basically made me not really want to be friends with either of
Hmm.
them. Which they just, man, they,
No, you don't have to get into it, but I'm just like, oh,
yeah,
that's interesting.
they just handled the whole situation so poorly. Uh, and I was just like really, honestly, like kind of disappointed in them both and kind of angry at them both,
Mm,
honestly. And was kind of like reflecting on what our relationships were and being like, I don't think these are the people that I need in my life. Like I still care about them. I still want the best for them, but like this is just not really where I need to be putting my energy. And that sucked. It was the right choice, I think. But because that sucks so much, I've definitely been a lot more cautious over the past year about like, okay, who am I going to put energy into? And certainly cautious about who am I going to like introduce to other people? Who am I going to like bring in? Who am I going to like keep
mm,
closer? And I've just been like trying to give it a lot more time, honestly. Used to like I'd meet someone,
mm,
be like, oh, they're so cool, and introduce them to people, and like over the course of like a month, and sometimes that worked out, and sometimes not so much. But these days, it's like, I mean, I have some friend, like kind of newer friends that I've been hanging out with for like months at this point, and I still haven't introduced to half my friends. So I don't know.
mm,
I think just giving it time and seeing where it goes for like yourself before you like really integrate and like invest more has been feeling a little better for me this past year, but there's probably better ways. Maybe I'll figure them out one day.
No, I appreciate that. Just taking your time and slowing down and, yeah, assessing your own relationship with the people. But no, I think that's a great point. I mean, and that's what's, I don't know, I find like really great about getting into hobbies and things, because you get a chance to meet that community of people who have that similar interest in things. So, I mean, like, I'm sure you've developed a lot of friendships through your activities as well, right? Or do you think like it's been more random? Like, I met them at a grocery store and we hit it off.
No, for sure. Like many of the like closest friends I have, I met through like climbing or whatever, and a lot of the experiences I've had through that, I like definitely wouldn't have had if I weren't doing these things.
I mean, okay. And so I know we went down like I know we kind of went down in like and I don't want to say it's like completely down. It's just like the reality of what life is and what we go through and stuff like that. But I mean, despite all of that, I guess like almost to like wrap things up, is there anything that like you would kind of tell people about that you would like to advise them on, or give them some like tips, or something that's inspired you or that's made you think differently? Is there anything that potentially comes to
Man,
mind?
I don't know if I'm the person you want giving advice to people either, but here we are. I don't know. I think,
I know you're
yeah,
on the spot.
I don't know. I think a lot of the best things in my life and the most growth for me have been when I'm just like focused on myself and just invested in what I'm doing and what I'm experiencing. And I think that's led to like personal growth, both in like, getting better or new experiences or whatever, but also like being more accepting of other people. Man, it's so easy to look at what somebody else is doing and like kind of, judge it, tear into it a little bit. And the more I like focus on myself and see what I'm doing, and like, yeah, some of it's kind of ridiculous. And so like if somebody else is getting value out of something that they're doing for themselves, cool. Um, and man, that's made my life a lot more relaxing. Just not getting
Mm,
upset about other people and just assuming that I'm doing what I need for me and they're doing what they need for them. And that's great.
yeah. Oh, I love that. I think that's, yeah, that's what we all need, is more acceptance of self and of others. Like, I feel like that's why we have so much conflict in the world anyway, is because of that lack of acceptance
Hmm.
on both ends. Like, how many people, are just like, yeah, I accept myself fully. And it's just like, we all struggle with it,
Oh,
fully
yeah.
accept
Well,
ourselves.
man, I don't I don't even like fully accepting myself. I like,
That you don't like it, or that you
well,
just don't?
both. Um,
Huh.
because like not being satisfied with what I am is giving me the most drive to change. And is it the healthiest way to start change?
Hmm.
Probably not. Has it brought a huge amount of growth for me? Yeah, absolutely. But like accepting the process that I'm going through, accepting whatever my goals are, that kind of like that level of self-acceptance, absolutely. And like that doesn't mean that we can't like roast each other. Honestly, I think like making fun of people in a good natured positive way is one of the highest forms of acceptance. Maybe that's just the family I grew up in, I don't know. Love a good roast. I'm sure people are going to be roasting the beans out of me for this whole thing, and that's great. Love to hear it. But man, like there's the difference between like roasting somebody and absolute just like shitting on them for no good reason.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. To really
yeah,
hurt
and
them.
like that's the kind of like acceptance that I think I've been feeling more of lately and just makes things feel better. It's like, cool. Are we doing different things? Is some of it kind of ridiculous? Is it funny? Can we make fun of it? Yeah. But at the end of the day, like it's all good.
Yeah, that's really cool. Oh, well, thank you, Dan. I like really appreciate the conversation. Like, it's really great to hear about all of the different things that you went through. And again, just connecting with somebody else who's like this adventurer and risk averse spirit. Which, yeah, you're not risk averse if you're fucking like mountaineering and rock climbing.
Different
So,
levels. but but no,
different
thank you so
levels.
much for inviting me to
Yeah.
this. This has been such a great experience and it's always fun chatting with you. So no complaints about having some time to do that.
No, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate your flexibility. And then just like for being open and honest about a lot of these things too, because some of the things we talked about, like, are things that people are going through in their everyday life, and they can't necessarily either pinpoint it because they can't see it just yet, or they just don't want to like fully accept it, or they don't know how to express it, or may feel alone in feeling that. And we're not alone. Like, we're never alone. I always try to tell people that. So I appreciate you being open about a lot of your things, and hopefully you'll stop getting injured.
Oh
I'm
my
going to check in
gosh.
with you and be like, you're not injured, right?
I would love that. I accept your challenge.
Okay. I'll check in. I'll try to check in like once a month and be like,
Okay.
injury free. And I'll just do like we'll do, it's like
I'll,
one of those like factory things where it's like, no accidents this month or this week or
pretend that, yeah,
today.
I'm gonna be like deciding whether or not I should try something and be like, am I gonna have to tell Denise that I got injured doing this? Can't do it.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll find out eventually anyway.
I'm sure you will. Oh man.
Well, thank you so much. And to all of our listeners, thank you again so much for your time. And if you want to reach out, I'm going to have Dan's Instagram in the bio. And he's also recommended, was it like 2 books? I think it was.
Yeah, I think I sent you a couple books. They're
Yeah,
pretty gripping. They're good reads.
nice. So I'll add all of that information in the bio, and feel free to check out Dan's Instagram. And if you have questions on climbing and stuff, like, he's very knowledgeable about that stuff and injury recovery. So, all right. Well, thank you so much. All right.
All right. Thank you.